I Want to Come Back to Myself by Miwa. My name is Miwa, and I think I've been living with fear for as long as I can remember. It wasn't the loud, dramatic kind of fear that made you scream or run. It was quiet, patient, always there in the background, like a second heartbeat. It showed up when I was praised and thought, what if I can't live up to this next time? It showed up when people smiled at me, and I wondered if they would still smile if they knew how much doubt I carried inside. It came when I walked into a room and immediately wondered if I belonged, if I was too much or not enough. I used to think fear was something I had to conquer, like a mountain I needed to climb, or an enemy I needed to defeat. And so I waited for the day I would wake up and it would be gone. But it never left. No matter how hard I tried to appear brave, no matter how good I became at pretending, no matter how many people thought I had it all together, fear stayed. It sat in the corners of my decisions, it whispered in the space between my thoughts, and it wrapped itself around the part of me that wanted to grow. I thought strength meant not feeling it. I thought success meant pushing through it until it disappeared. But the more I resisted it, the more powerful it became. Slowly, without noticing, I began to disappear under the weight of it. I said yes when I wanted to say no. I smiled when I wanted to cry. I performed the version of me that I thought people could love and hid the parts that felt too tender, too uncertain, too real. I told myself that as long as no one saw the mess inside me, I was safe. But I wasn't. I was disconnected. I was hollow. I was surviving, but not really living. Then one evening, I sat alone in my room in silence, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that makes you feel like everything is echoing too loudly inside your own head. The sun had already gone down, and I hadn't turned on the lights. I looked around the room and suddenly felt like I was watching someone else's life. I couldn't remember the last time I had felt excited about anything, the last time I had laughed from my chest, the last time I had looked in the mirror and recognized myself. That night, something shifted. Not a dramatic change, but a quiet question that rose inside me and asked, "What are you waiting for?" And for once, I didn't have an answer. The next morning, I woke up and wrote a sentence in a small notebook I hadn't touched in months. I wrote, "I want to come back to myself." I didn't know what that would look like or how long it would take or even who that self was anymore. But I knew I couldn't keep waiting for fear to leave. I had to learn how to walk with it. I began by doing small things that felt safe but unfamiliar. I let myself rest without guilt. I sat with uncomfortable emotions without trying to change them. I told someone close to me that I was tired, not physically, but spiritually. I started noticing things that used to pass me by. The softness of morning light, the sound of birds before the city woke up, the way tea warms my hands even when my heart feels cold. Slowly, I started to feel things again. Not all good, but real. I realized that fear wasn't trying to stop me from living, it was trying to protect me from pain. It was my mind's way of saying, please be careful. Because somewhere along the way, I had learned that love could leave, that people could judge, that effort could fail. But I no longer wanted to live a life shaped by old wounds. I wanted to give myself permission to be afraid and still choose to speak, to try, to show up as I am. I started practicing softness with myself, something I had never been taught. I stopped measuring my worth by how productive I was, by how strong I appeared, by how easily I pleased others. I began to see that my mind wasn't broken, it was simply overwhelmed, full of unspoken stories, heavy with questions no one had helped me ask. I learned to listen, to pause, to breathe when my thoughts tried to rush ahead. I stopped chasing a version of myself I thought would be finally lovable, and began accepting the one who already was. Now, when fear visits me, and it still does, I no longer push it away. I sit beside it. I ask what it needs. I hold space for the part of me that still gets nervous, uncertain, soft in the face of the world. I no longer wait for perfection before I begin. I've learned that a trembling voice can still tell the truth. that shaky hands can still create something beautiful, that healing doesn't always feel like light. Sometimes it feels like fog lifting slowly, moment by moment, breath by breath. Life is quieter now, but fuller. My joy is softer, not explosive, but steady, like a candle that doesn't flicker as easily anymore. I still have dreams, but I no longer run toward them in fear of being late.